It had been 3 days since Molly Burkline went so heard from her sister Anna, and Molly was began to bury nearer and more to sunlight. It had been going through a rough time lately. Marriage had fallen apart, eventually ending in her recent divorce, and found her sorrows and liquor, kingdom and rain. Since her divorce, Anna stayed her minutes in the speakeasies on the outskirts of town with their secret agreements living often in the company of Weinberg Carr, the brother of Molly's husband Ernest and Oberwein. In keeping company with the Whites wasn't particularly unusual. Marriage between Whites and Osage County and it now became a commonplace. Anna, Molly, and their sister Rebecca Winnie had all married white men for Anna's whiskey sold for 40 ways and her rotation of different white men. Well, that was something else. That was scandalous. But Walter let Anna to just up and disappear for days without checking in. The thing was so bewildering, also very worried about Anna's behavior lately, especially after the shocking loss of Amelia 3 years earlier. May was only 27 at the time and her health, but suddenly passed away from what doctors claimed was wasting sickness. But the family still had unanswered questions about that. Now, Mom, she loved to entertain and often invited guests over to her spacious home for get-togethers. Earlier that week, Molly asked Ernest to call Anna over to help tend to their mother Lacey, while Molly prepared for an afternoon party. And to Molly's dismay, instead of showing up ready to help, Anna arrived all dolled up in bright red heels, holding an alligator skin purse and clearly very calm. Molly was livid. Definitively, Anna showed up in the state that she was in, and full well that Molly was having guests over, and not only that, but some of the guests were understanding Molly's in-laws, including Ernest's brothers, Brian and Forrest, and one of Ernest's aunts who had issues with Molly simply because of her ethnicity. Then Molly and her family were all full-blooded members of the Osage tribe with their names inscribed on the tribal name. Ernest's aunt hated American Indians and thought it was disgraceful that her nephew was married to one, and she wasn't shy about making her opinions known. The last thing Molly needed was for Anna and her willingness to get Anna all riled up with. Of course, it's exactly what Anna did. Anna pulled the glass of bootleg gin from her purse, kicked off her shoe, and proceeded to make a complete spectacle of herself. Anna hiked up her skirt, laughed loudly as she danced blissfully with the men, including Ernest. She antagonized Ernest's racist old aunt neutral and half the woman demanded to be driven home in an indignant outrage. She ordered her fine and threatened to kill him if he messed around with the woman. She fought with the guests. She fought with her mother. He fought with Molly. A servant who was at the party later told law enforcement she couldn't understand the language, but said they had an awful time with Miss Anna. Still, she thought to stay upset with Anna for too. At the afternoon party carried on into the evening hours, except with some, and Molly could see the old Anna, the vivacious, clever, and charming Anna charmed food. The sisters put aside the negativity that Anna doesn't go and go back to being friends. Molly even washed up Anna's clothing and fixed her something to eat before sending her off flying to volunteer to drop in home. The sisters hugged goodbye and promised to see each other later. Little did Molly know that this moment was the last she would see Anna more. Molly never imagined, not even in her darkest nightmares, that consistent vanishing was the first from the time she was still of religious total terror bring down of her entire community and the horrific, heartbreaking tragedies of true. Hi, hello, and welcome to the Portrait of Carmen and Carmen. And I am so excited to be here with you today. So today, we're doing a little time jump and going back to the heart of the American West in the early 20th century, where beneath the swinglet shooting lies a dark tale of greed, betrayal, and injustice. The Osage territory stretches across acres of very fertile lands, volunteers in lush rainforest in northeast Oklahoma. Tucked away in the picturesque landscape is a town of Horse and the Osage American Indian settlement. It's a tight-knit community of loving families and friendly neighbors where everyone knows everyone. But in the spring of 1821, something wicked came to Julie with anxiety. One by one, the Osage people began to fall victim to great happening. Some had mysterious lethal accidents. Some became sick with wacky failed illnesses. Some just disappeared with no explanation. An unsettling, sinister presence stalked the community, and as the lights were lost, families were shattered. The community would never be the same. Pursuit of justice helped establish the FBI and ushered in an era of innovative criminal investigation that continues to influence law enforcement today. The horror, the trauma experienced by the Osage also had a lasting effect that reverberates across time, leaving behind a legacy of pain and heartbreak. Gather around as we uncover a dark, detailed, and often overlooked chapter of American history, the shocking and systemic killings of the Osage people and the beginnings of the FBI. This story is as intriguing as it is tragic. There were so many twists, turns, and devastating revelations to reveal. So let's get into a world shaped by poems. Long before the tragic saga of Molly Burkhardt and the reign of terror waged against the Osage Nation, the Osage people lived on their ancestral land, blissfully unaware of the dark clouds gathering on the horizon. The Osage are a Great Plains American Indian tribe. It's been in North America for thousands of years. The name Osage is actually a French version of the tribe's name that translates to calm water. They are known as the Washashi by most settlers, so in the tribe's language they are the Neokanska, which means the children of the middle water. The Osage roamed the plains for many generations, and their initial interactions with settlers was mostly positive. Before the Louisiana Purchase, they were the most important fur trading tribe in Missouri and were known as the indigenous gateway to the West. Long before the St. Louis Arch existed, without their guidance, knowledge, and assistance, the western extension of America would have been significantly more difficult to achieve. In the fall and spring, the Osage people lived in villages of den-shaped thatched lodges. Those who built along the hilltops were known as the Great Osage. Those who lived along the riverberates were the Petite Osage. During the hunting season, they moved into portable teepee. The Osage used animal skin to make clothing. Traditionally, Osage women wore long, doeskin dresses, leggings that were decorated with fancy beadwork and ribbon designs, and wrapped themselves in blankets and with satin silk, while Osage men wore breechcloths and leather leggings. They all wore moccasins on their feet, and in the winter, they bundled into warm buffalo hide. Tribal tattoos were marks of honor that only warriors and their wives or daughters could own, but all of the Osage could paint their faces for special occasions. Different patterns of paint were used depending on the occasion. Men and boys hunted game, while women and girls tended furs and went the field. Young and old, they all collected nuts, berries, and persimmons to supplement their meat and vegetable diet. The Osage were rich in culture and known for their art, music, and deep respect for nature. In the early 1800s, as a precursor to the Indian Removal Act later implemented by Andrew Jackson, then President Thomas Jefferson began the forced relocation of American Indian tribes from their ancestral lands east of the Mississippi to the Arizona Territory. This was his grand vision of what would become known Manifest Destiny. Interestingly enough, Thomas Jefferson had conflicting beliefs regarding American Indians. On one hand, Jefferson believed American Indians to be noble people with distinct reasoning capabilities, even referring to the Osage specifically as the Great Nation stock of Missouri, and he considered them to be a valiant and tribe. On the other hand, he felt the American Indians were technological and culturally inferior savages believed that Indian land should be taken over by white people. At the time, the United States had a weak presence in the Osage territories, and Jefferson pushed for increased fur trade and permission for American exploration was in the Osage leadership naively believed in the goodwill of the United States government. And this belief led them to engage in a series of treaties that promised protection and support but were ultimately unfair to Osage interests. With the Treaty of 1808, Osage ceded 52 million acres of land for less than 1/6 cent per acre. The Osage thought they'd still be able to hunt on the lands. They didn't understand they were actually ceding full ownership. Jefferson also failed to mention he intended to move eastern tribe eastward onto Osage lands. Once the Osage tribe controlled territory stretching across what is now known as Missouri, Arkansas, Kansas, and Oklahoma involved. With the signing of the Louisiana Purchase, the United States laid claim to Osage lands and billions of acres of the tribe. And as white settlers moved onto the lands, indigenous people were forced out. New tribes had their ancestral lands stolen, and they were displaced areas far from their homes. The government then gave the tribes that they'd relocated from eastern lands new land in the west to make it, but those lands already belonged to other tribes. In the Kickapoo, originating from the Great Lakes area, the Shawnee from the Ohio River Valley, the Cherokee from present-day southeastern region, as well as many other tribes who forced onto Osage Reign. This increase in population put added pressure on the already limited hunting grounds and available natural resources. It resulted in many conflicts. What's more, the government intentionally overhunted bison, removing people's main food sources, and white settlers often stole and destroyed tribal food crops and damaged their homes. This, along with competition for food among the displaced tribes, made it the traditional food source war soon gone. Starvation was a real reality for the Osage tribe. Tens of thousands perished. In addition to starvation and tribal conflict, disease decimated the Osage population. Devastating epidemics of influenza, cholera, and worst of all, smallpox, starting by contact with white settlers or with the community. Government stepped in to prevent the ongoing conflicts over territory and resources between the Osage and the Cherokee by enacting the Treaty of 1825. This treaty stated more land to the government, establishing boundaries of Osage lands and essentially moving the tribe into Kansas. The government agreed to provide annual payments and assistance to the Osage for the land they were given up, promising money and help with farming, education, healthcare, and recognized the Osage tribe as a sovereign nation with self-governance and authority over internal affairs. It's important to note that while these treaties were meant to create peaceful relations between the tribes in the United States, and they had a long period of detriment, which is due to the impacts of certain agreements. Many tribes face challenges maintaining their traditional ways of life, and more often than not, functions and protections weren't kept. Government just wouldn't pay the money on goods that they promised. Instead of pacification, the presence of federal troops to stack the so-called Indian territories to keep peace actually resulted in more unnecessary violence and bloodshed. And further enforcement by pioneers pushed the Osage and other tribes to smaller and smaller parcels of land. If you've ever read the Little House on the Prairie book series written by your English Wilder, or watched the 1970s television drama adaptation starring Michael Landon and Melissa Gilbert, then it may surprise you to know that the Eagle sent actually illegally swatting on the Osage Reserve lands in Canada. Long the result speaks to this fact. In the chapter titled Recall Indian, a book green in the Little House series, Lo and Spoke, Why Do All Indians Go East? The poet advised the gun makes them goals. When whites then lose some equal country that Indians have too long, the gun is going to mean all these Indians far west equally. That's why we're human, or white people will want to settle all this country. And we get the best land because we get here first and take care of it. Now do you understand? Whites said it dehumanized the American Indians and believed they were entitled to life only that didn't belong to them and thought themselves to be superior. And fortunately, their degradation and sense of superiority was very, very commonplace, and the Osage so found themselves pushed out of Kansas as well. The Osage were once considered to be one of the most formidable tribes in North America. However, they determined early on to never make war with the United States, and they never did. Historically, they'd gotten a well in trading relationship and trusted the United States government. This was real to being state. The tribe extremists continued, bitter betraying, lying, and crying again. As a result of starvation and disease, the population severely declined. Endless string of pioneers settling on their lands as well as the continued broken promises for funding and protection by the government, and the repeated military threats from the government left the unsafe with no choice but to make another unfair deal with the government. This deal called for the Osage to cede the territory they had left in Kansas, the Kansas Central Railway, and to move further south and buy land from the Cherokee. So they sold the Osage Diminished Reserve in Kansas at $1.25 an acre and purchased a portion of rocky, hilly land in Oklahoma from the Cherokee and built a reservation there. Cheap wood to a crop beneath it, settlers would want to come to such a place and said, "White people will be happy in this land. There are many hills. White man does not like punching with their heels and he will not talk." But the government had another trick up its sleeve called the Dawes Act. The aim of the Dawes Act was to assimilate American Indian tribes into mainstream society by promoting private land ownership and farming. To achieve this, the government would break apart communal American Indian land ownership and encourage individual land ownership. The government believed that by giving land to individual American Indians and promoting agricultural practices, they were civilized and integrated into American society. And this act authorized the division of tribal lands into individual allotments for each family. The head of household was given a plot of land with a single person receiving smaller portions. The land was sold with trust for about 25 years. Then the landholder received ownership and title of the land. Then, they adopted a lifestyle of farming and civilized people. They could become U.S. citizens. The Dawes often resulted in surplus land, but instead of the land being returned back to the tribes, opened up for sale to white settlers. And as you can imagine, this led to significant tribal land loss involved. Because the Osage had purchased their lands outright from the Cherokee, they had a little leverage to push back against the Dawes Act. The tribe was forced into land allotment, but they insisted on a few clauses. First, the land allotments could only be distributed to members of the Osage tribe. And second, the mineral rights beneath the surface of the allotted land could only be owned collectively by the Osage. These both would set the stage for an unimaginable wave of ruin and tragedy, tales of opposites and envy. As the first beams of dawn pierced the horizon, they illuminated a nation on the brink of unprecedented transformation. The United States was in the throes of the old era, a time of dizzying highs and devastating lows that would reshape the cultural landscape forever. The air was charged with ambition and a sense of opportunity, whilst the nation prospectors and dreamers headed west, driven by the promise of unimaginable wealth lurking beneath the earth's surface. Oil was the elixir of innovation, the very lifeblood that powered ever-accelerating wheels of progress. Small towns burgeoned into bustling cities, almost overnight. Skyscrapers, evidence of human ingenuity and imagination, perhaps the heavily flooding. There were automobiles everywhere, replacing horse-drawn carts and carriages, a cacophony of steel and steam. Fueled by newfound riches was the soundtrack of a rapidly evolving world. Better of oil derricks became heartbeat of a nation racing towards an uncertain future. The frenetic pursuit of wealth needed every facet of society. Entrepreneurs and industrialists became the titans of an industry. Names like Rockefeller, Getty, and Hunt became synonymous with money and power. Their fortunes rivaled those of European royals as the nation rode the crest of this oil-fueled wave. Fortune had also felt a seismic, tremulous change. The Roaring Twenties burst forth in a wide of extravagance and jazz music echoed through smoky speakeasies as flippers with bob hair and beaded gowns and stimulated like the silver string flickered to light, and Hollywood emerged at the epicenter of global entertainment, creating twin stars from emerging modes, captivating audiences with tales of romance, revenge, land, and adventure bondage. For all its mystique and magic, old boom era was not without its shadows. Beneath the glitter and facade, inequality and social tension simmered. The divide between the wealthy elite and the struggling masses was natural, giving rise to a sense of restlessness and discontent. With the ratification of the 18th Amendment, prohibition went into effect and alcohol was banned. The country went dry at midnight on January 17, 1940, and in the rocky fields of a once forgotten corner of Oklahoma, the rain, jealous, and the greed that walked past accepted stage of devastation and ruin that still reverberates to this day. And it all began on the Osage Nation. Oh boy, the Osage had been moving peacefully and thriving, earning money from grand fleeces that Carmen had paid to breed the livestock on Osage Reign. News of oil discoveries and neighboring regions had already sparked the interest of the companies and speculators. This black gold, buried deep within the earth, had become the lifeblood of industrialization. It was the key to acts and influence the entire news in the autumn of 1897. The Osage native had begun to hear whispers of oil seeping through the soil of neighboring lands, rumors of fortune beneath the gates, and the winds reaching the ears of the tribe's chief. After meeting with his council, it was decided to send scouts to investigate the claims. Days and 2 weeks, some the scouts returned with eyes filled with excitement, or exciting joy. What they found is nothing short of like, it's true, they told the chief. The earth beneath us holds a wonderful treasure. Why not? It's from the earth, like a river. The great chief decided that all safely embraced this gift with wisdom and unity. into space and ceremonial colors and made a speech to us. We are the keepers of this land, and this land has gifted us with the bounty. We shall brave this path with respect, ensure our future generations and reap the rewards of our efforts. And so, the Osage Nation forged a path into a future promise fulfilled. When things from far and wide flocked to Osage County in droves, and with them came 15 deals of access to the oil-rich lands. The Osage leaders secured royalties and home alliances. They signed lucrative leasing contracts and made profitable agreements. Oil leases soared in value, and prosperity flowed into the Osage communities. A cautious optimism swept through land. The Osage Council established reverberates, a system that granted each member listed on the Osage probable and benefits and equal shares in the floral profits to prevent hijacking of their wealth from outsiders. Both prevent sell purchase headlights. Nation members were allowed to sell their purpose lands. Finally, the Osage were no longer at the mercy of others and were once again the masters of their own destinies. Yet, amid the tribulation, a cloud of apprehension, long old elders of tribe, and God, they watched empires rise and fall. They understood the unpredictable nature of change. They believed the wealth could be a double-edged sword and might lead to the erasure of the traditional Osage way, like creating a wall and sphere of void could never be still fire to the land. They also knew that the oil wells that had brought the pipes up good working could just as easily run dry. And when the checks stopped coming in, the Osage would have nothing left. But the younger members of the tribe took off being of those warnings. Grand mansions took the place of traditional farmhouses. Beautiful luxury cars influenced forest dirt roads. The Osage also experienced a cultural renaissance. They invested in education and arts. They built schools and hospitals. The rhythm of their life shifted, and with their achievements came a renewed sense of pride. Unfortunately, this story came with dark shadow. The Osage lived a life of abundance, and their prosperity was the fault of a nation that can bring jealousy and resentment the whiting of Allah. Envy was battle. Those outside the community just fathomed the immensity of Osage wealth. They hated the idea that the secret people they thought of as their cultural and racial inferiors had become rich. Simply because they think the good luck to the summer oil on their late popular media at the time, especially newspapers, were instrumental in shaping public perception. The press reported on Osage wealth as low or disgrace. They called the Osage the Red Millionaires. They said the Osage were lazy, ignorant, reckless spendthrifts who squandered their undeserved money on obscene displays of wealth. They claimed it was the hard work and intelligence of white people that made the old fields profitable in the first place, while the Osage didn't know. Sensationalized narratives of trafficking, partying, cushy lifestyles, and exotic vacations made that they told tales of exclusive boarding school educations for Osage children and inspired collections of expensive bars lining gravel driveways of large mansions that the Osage laid there. They revealed the audacity of the Osage to have white servants. An article in the Tulsa Tribune carried the headline, "Secret Osage Rituals. Are they bewitched by their wealth?" The piece painted a picture of Osage folk as strange and cult-like, a wider rich history and significance, and implied that the Osage were using dark magic to maintain their wealth. Writers also used the Osage traditional lifestyle to portray them as wild, saboteurs. Stories recalled of expensive cars circling open campfires where Osage men cooked meat in a primitive style. In the Osage County Gazette, a headline blared, Osage millionaires' host shared enough extravagant fault. The article went on to describe the opulent decorations, designer gowns, fine wine served at the event. Harper's Monthly bluntly commented, the Osage Indians are becoming so rich that something had to be done about it. Readers couldn't help but feel jealous of the Osage tribe's luxurious lifestyle. These spells stoked the flames of burning rage, envy, and spite of white Americans. Novel exploitation. Before the discovery of oil, the untamed wilderness of the Indian Territory soon little appeal for respectable whites. Still was a place that seemed feral and savage, far removed from modern society. But with the discovery of oil, suddenly the very same people who laid down and rushed to be there were spread like wildfire. The once quiet neighborhoods soon into both boom counties, and all of the people hungry for a taste of oil-soaked opportunity. Some decided to stake their claims in the oil field. They worked the rigs, plunging their dicks deep into the earth in pursuit of liquid gold. Others chose a deliver path. The richest could be extracted directly from the Osage people by any means necessary. Once the money started rolling in, the United States government took notice, and in its hubris created laws to protect the Osage people, but really these laws just restricted the Osage people's autonomy. The Osage were seen as naive and amateur, and it was feared that they would blow through their massive fortunes. So Congress limited their ability to withdraw more than a few $1,000s a year from their accounts. This resulted in many Osage struggling in day-to-day poverty, even though they originally. The government also created the Guardian Law. With this law, a foundation was laid where corruption, exploitation, and eventually murder would flourish. The Guardian Law forced the Osage to have a white person in charge of their money. Guardianship appointments were assigned by local judges. Some who were to leave and would give appointments to their relatives or political supporters. A guardian had full compliance over an Osage ward's finances. It could be as generous or as stingy as they pleased. If they wanted, they could restrict a tribal member's headrights income and force them to live on next to nothing. A guardian could use Osage money to buy goods at heavily inflated prices from personally owned business, or force them to shop at specific stores that offered them kickbacks. The guardian often borrowed money at discounts from white creditors, then lent this money back to their Osage wards at exorbitant interest rates. In some cases, financial exploitation of the Osage led to starvation and death. The whites called it Indian business, and tens of millions were swindled from the Osage through this government station embezzlement, with at least another 8 million outright stolen. Marriage is another way white outsiders took advantage of those. Full-blooded Osage were typically always forced into the guardianship system, but mixed-race Osage were merely reduced. So many full-blooded Osage sought white spouses so that their children would have full autonomy over their own money. If an Osage spouse died, then their husband or wife could make a claim for the head rights. So when the Osage tribe members began to systemically disappear or become victims of sudden accidents and unexplained illnesses, it soon became clear that these deaths were not mere coincidences. They were part of a sinister plan to gain control of the Osage fortunes. The deepening abyss. So where was Brian saw a daughter of the who fought and been 3 days, and Molly couldn't shape a long thing that simply was very, very long. Whispers of Anna's disappearance make certain that you but knew it. Sending shivers down the spine to everyone who heard about her sudden energy. But it was more than just a few one woman having gone missing. It was the nagging unease of deja vu because Angela's growing concerns was triggered that another Osage woman, a man named Rose Blakemore, had gone missing a week before Anna. And Molly's mind raced with thoughts that trying to see various of their sister's unexplained sickness. And Molly couldn't help but wonder if Anna had fallen sick as well. Maybe Anna was lying somewhere thinking, unable to call for help. She sent Ernest to check on Anna's phone, but all he found was silence and darkness. The front door was in it. When he peeked in through the windows, he saw that the walls were all still and quiet. There was no one inside. Ernest spoke with one of Anna's servants who were next door, hoping he find some answers. The servant said she hadn't seen Anna for days, had no idea where she could be. Molly tried her best to ignore her indecencies of dread, told herself that Anna was probably holed up at one of the gas stoves she liked to go to, and maybe she lost track of time. Once she came for seats as she made her way home fade away, but the need amongst the thought of reassuring thoughts. There was no denying the chilling undercurrent of fear and anxiety forcing through the Osage settlement. So, 2 weeks after Anna vanished, a man's teenage son were out squirrel hunting with a friend at the local creek. When the boys stumbled off the steamer, decomposing body of what appeared to be an American Indian woman, the squirrel hunters immediately rushed back to town in search of help. There weren't any law enforcement officers around, so they ended up blindfolded general store that also happened to be an undertaking business. Undertaker gathered some men, and they all very active to see. We rolled and dragged the body uphill and placed her in a wooden box underneath a shade tree. The Undertaker personally knew that and tried to identify whether or not the woman was her, but the body was in such bad condition that it was impossible for him to determine who she was. Word was sent to Molly that a woman, possibly Anna, was found in the ravine. She made her way to the creek with her sister Rita. Rita's husband Bill, Carmen, and Brian, followed by a flock of curious onlookers and people who knew Anna. Because of the state of the body, Molly and Rita couldn't tell if the woman was Anna or not, just by looking. They recognized the items scattered about the scene, the embroidery and beading in the blanket nearby, and the clothing the dead woman wore as being the same as Anna's, but Owen's body was virtually unidentifiable. The listeners weren't sure. Was it possible that Anna had lent her clothing to someone else? Finally, Bill stepped forward and used the stick to force the woman's mouth open. They could see the gold fillings in her teeth glittering in the sunlight. It was Anna. Rita broke down crying and was ushered away, a wells of grief echoing through the valley. Molly fell back her tears. She forced herself to ignore the numbness creeping through her chest, did her best to calm her unsteady mind. She would really be the strong one, but right now she felt like she'd somehow wandered into a awakened nightmare. She was afraid. Took all she had from Molly to gather her composure and said, "Yes, Anna." He and Ernest walked home in silence to break the news to Lizzie. Molly's thoughts erased the questions of what happened to Anna and who could be responsible. Anna was devastated and made certain already its Osage community even long, and Anna was Lizzie's first child, and everyone knew that Anna was a favorite. Lizzie could barely function, let alone plan her daughter's funeral, so Mom stepped up to organize everything. Lizzie believed that the Great Spirits had taken back the family's blessings and that more darkness lay ahead. No one could have predicted just how white she was. In the early 20th century, law enforcement was mostly untrained amateurs and shared some of their duties with citizens. The citizens regularly carried out investigations and solved suspections and procedures called the Citizens' Inquest, and so it went with an investigation into Anna's death. Men were chosen for this duty not because of their experience, but simply because they happened to be the first white men to arrive at the scene. They needed to figure out if Anna had passed away from natural causes or if she had been the victim of a crime. Luckily, 2 doctors happened to be on the scene, brothers, James and David Shaw, but no one had been particularly respectful to Anna's body or compassionate to her loved ones. Molly stood among the spectators gathered at the edge of the grave and watched as the doctors performed a full autopsy right there on the river bank in the sweltering heat. Because of Anna's exposure to the elements, it was far for an exact time of death to be determined, but a rough estimate was given of between 5 and 7 days. When the doctors examined Anna's scalp, they found a small bullet wound entrance in the back of her head, but they couldn't find the bullet. Anna had been murdered. Law enforcement was called to the scene, but they weren't much help. At the time, there wasn't a standard for law enforcement training. Law enforcement officers were essentially relics of the past, and quite a few were literally one step above criminals, having once been ruthless outlaws themselves. And from the start, the Anne Brown investigation was watched with the presence of a large trial contaminating the crime scene and compromising evidence. Law enforcement officers found a half-empty bottle of moonshine on the ground near a blood-smeared rock. They used 2 sets of barred tire tracks circling through the ravine coming and leaving. They determined that Anna had been sitting on the rock drinking moonshine when someone had come up from behind and shot her. The investigators didn't bother to check Anna for gunpowder residue or dust her body for fingerprints. They didn't take photographs of the crime scene at all. And to twist the knife and others, even include the Osage were maliciously exploited. Osage was reports at excessive rates. The family paid over $1,000 for Anna's funeral, which is nearly $83,000 today, adjusted for inflation. Animal had been so damaged by both the exposure to the elements and the archaic autopsy that Molly couldn't even paint her sister's face for the funeral rites, which is a sacred Osage tribal burial tradition. The family worried and prayed for Anna's spirit not to be lost because her face could be painted. Molly put 3 days' worth of food in the vessel for Anna's journey to the happy hunting ground. The family watched her casket be lowered into the ground. From the moment of Anna's disappearance, Molly felt knew something wasn't right, and now her most terrifying fear was reality. Someone more responsible, someone needed to be held accountable, and Molly was determined to make sure that justice would prevail. Terror in Osage County. About a week after Anna had been found, an oil field worker came across the body of Joel Whitewell. He'd been shot execution style and hidden in the fall prairie grass. The weapon, a .32 caliber handgun, appeared to be the same as the one used in Anna's murder. The eerie parallels, both victims being wealthy Osage, both meeting their demise at almost the same time, and in very similar circumstances, made local headlines and spoke flames of anxiety among me. Molly's number one goal was justice for her sister, and she was lucky to have Ernest and his family at her side. Then Ernest's uncle was William Hill. William Hill was a well-connected businessman who could help her reach that goal. Hill was also a reserve deputy sheriff and ordained preacher, and had donated to Osage charities and hospitals even before the Osage became. The Osage considered Bell to be Osage County's greatest benefactor in his generosity that granted him the name the King of the Osage Hills. He vowed to Molly and her family that justice would be done, and Molly testified to the local justice of the peace that he'd sent Anna off with Brian. Brian testified that he dropped Anna off. Both Elijah and Ernest were briefly detained and released without charges. There were competing theories about who the murder could be, and no shortage of dead ends. Informants came forward and intentionally pointed investigators in wrong directions. One man in prison for forgery initially confessed to the crime. He claimed he was paid by Anna's ex-husband to murder her and dump her body in a ravine. But it was quickly discovered that the man's confession was false. He hadn't even been in Osage County at the time. The man later confessed he'd bring it all up, hoping for better prison conditions. Some rumors surfaced that Anna was part of a love triangle going on. Some even claimed that there was a romantic relationship between Anna and Saul's wife. Investigators chased those leads, but they proved to be unreliable as well. Investigators thought they had a break in the case when they discovered that someone from a business in the nearby town of Austin had placed a phone call to Anna's house the night she disappeared. But when they followed the lead, no one in Ralston had any record of the call. It was suspected that someone had arranged to have the phone records falsified from investigators off, who hired private detectives who, despite their use of strong-arm tactics like breaking into buildings and kidnapping suspects, also managed to make no real headway. By July, Hills County investigators tapped out, and the local authorities decided to wrap up the investigation. The conclusion: Anna was murdered by parties unknown. As far as officials were concerned, they'd done all they could do to get justice for Anna, and that was that. In the same month, under suspiciously similar circumstances to how many had died years earlier, Lizzie unexpectedly passed away from wasting sickness. It was Bill, Rita's husband, who was the first to point out that many otherwise healthy Osage seemed to have died of strange, unexplained wasting sicknesses in recent months. But Bill wasn't the greatest person in Molly's eyes, and she seemed to be a questionable character, and most importantly, so did William Hale. See, Bill was out being married to Minnie first, and when Minnie died of that odd, wasting illness, he and Rita got married only a few months later. By marrying both Rita and Minnie, things connected to Osage will vice over. Still, Bill hadn't exactly been quiet about his skepticism surrounding the investigation into Anna's murder. In fact, he was so unhappy with the outcome, he took it upon himself to carry out his inquiries, running down rumors and speculation. And he made it no secret that he found the circumstances surrounding Lindsay's death to be highly suspicious. When he looked into it further, what he learned was beyond disturbing. No doctor could tell him exactly what had caused Lizzie's illness. He began to believe that she and other Osage were deliberately poisoned, and that her death was linked to those of Anna and Charles White. But at that point, Bill's concerns fell deaf ears. 9 months after the discovery of Anna and Charles Whitehorn, a young Osage man named William Stepson received a phone call in the middle of the night. He left his home to meet up with someone unknown, and when he returned, he suddenly dropped dead. Stepson had been healthy and athletic. He worked stairs for a living, and it required him to be at peak physical fitness. Authorities determined he died of strychnine poisoning. In a place like Osage County, poisoning was an ideal way to commit murder. The coroner was mostly trained in forensics and didn't have a Bible. So even though Stepson's cause of death was found to be strychnine poisoning, there was no comprehensive toxicology exam. And mysterious poisonings of Osage men and women continued into the summer, and Osage woman named Anna Semper died under mysterious circumstances after marrying a man named Carmen. Many suspected Anna had been poisoned, but since there was no toxicology examination performed, it wasn't definitive. After Anna Semper's death, Carmen inherited her headworks and then went on to marry William Hill's niece, an unnamed Osage man in his 30s. Took a drink of whiskey he brought out of a stranger, foamed from his mouth, then fell to the floor in convulsions, dead from an unknown poison. Numerous members of the tribe also became victims of inexplicably fatal accidents and curious omens. He was justifiably terrified. It was obvious that these were just random homicides. The tribe was being targets of a well-orchestrated murder campaign. The tribe leaders went to a trusted friend, 55-year-old white man, Bonnie McBride, friend. McBride promised to do what he could instead of Washington, D.C. from using his considerable political connections there to lobby federal government to intercede in whatever was going on in Osage County directly. But among the front lights of Washington, D.C., far away from the dusty plains of Osage County, McBride himself fell victim to the murders conspiracy. He was kidnapped as he walked along the streets, and days later he was found naked in a Maryland. He'd been stabbed more than 20 times in his skull bashed in. The Osage murders now made national news. The Washington Post headline blared, "Conspiracy believed to kill rich Indians." But even murders couldn't stop the blow capitalists. There was money to be made, and everything looked so. The millionaires continued to spill into Oklahoma. They arrived in mass, pulling into railway stations in their friendly train cars. Them, along with others, all came to bid on Osage leases. One good Osage oil lease could change a man's entire life, and is that place markets on the backs of all citizens in the Osage Nation. About 6 months after Bonnie McBride was found dumped in a gutter in Maryland, the partially modified remains of an Osage man named Henry Rowan was discovered stuck behind the steering wheel of his car. He'd been shot in the back of the head. Local authorities were clueless about who could be responsible. They notified William Hill personally because he was known to be close friends with Rowan. As a matter of fact, Hill was the beneficiary of Rowan's $26,000 life insurance. Hill did mention to law enforcement that he had a direct financial interest in Rowan's. When news of what happened to Rowan reached Mom, he was full. Molly and Rowan had once been married. At the time, Molly was only 15. There was a traditional Osage marriage with no legal record and no legal divorce. But still, Molly felt a continued deep warmth and closeness feeling. She never told Ernest about their marriage, and even though she usually cooperated with the local authorities, she felt strange about the circumstances and decided not to tell them about the marriage. A foreboding atmosphere of fear, a paranoia weighed down heavily on the community. People suspected their neighbors and even their families of being involved in the deadly conspiracy. And even though Bill's speculations hadn't been listened to, he continued to look into the killings on his own. He discovered, shortly before his disappearance, Vaughn met up with a local kingpin bootlegger named Henry Wemmer to buy whiskey. Bill knew that Anna often visited Grimmer Ranch as well. As Bill seemed to get closer to the truth, Bill and Rita started to receive threats and intimidation, especially after he uncovered the Grimmer Mansion. Under the cloak of darkness, night after night, intruders crept into the yard, loudly knocking on surfaces, making noise and moving things around. Rita was terrified, and little by little, Bill lost his bravado. After a few weeks of targeted harassment, Bill and Rita left their home in the isolated hills with most of their possessions still there and moved into a larger, more secure home in the center of town. They thought they would be safer surrounded by neighbors that had electric light bulbs hanging outside, illuminating the darkness of the night, and guard dogs monitoring their houses. Bill confided to his friends that he didn't expect to live long. Then, a few weeks after Bill and Rita moved into the new home, they were lying asleep in the upstairs master bedroom when the house floated descended into darkness. The explosion was heard miles away and blasted out windows in the neighboring town. Nothing remained of the house, twisted metal and earth scraps of furniture. Ernest was among the rescuers who pulled Rita's mangled and charred remains from the rubble. Bill was alive, but burned nearly beyond recognition, suffering horrible pain and grief. He made statements implying William Hill and Ernest Burkhardt were behind the murder, but his word was seen as delirious morphine delusion, fueled by warning and injury. He died 4 days after the explosion. The body of Bill and Rita's 19-year-old servant, Nettie Berkshire, was never recovered, and now Molly was the last one left. Many Osage believed the local authorities were conspiring with the killers and intentionally undermining the investigation. But there were still a few kind and honest white people on the side of justice. For example, attorney William Watkins Long, also known as WW, had been quietly investigating the Osage murders. Long's close friend and Osage rancher George Bighart suddenly fell ill and was unceremoniously hustled onto a train and carted off to an Oklahoma City hospital by his neighbors, William Harrell and Ernest Burkhardt. Bighart suspected he drank poisoned whiskey. The doctors at the hospital confirmed his suspicion. Bighart called Long and asked him to come to the hospital. He told Long that he had evidence about the murders and he knew who the killers were. He even gave Long documents proving his claims. Long waited with Bighart, who died from ingesting poisoned whiskey. Long then called the Osage County Sheriff and shared that he had new information on the case and was taking the first train home. Long never made it back to Osage County. 3 days after he called the sheriff, his naked body was found near the railroad track. The first official newspaper reports were that Long had somehow fallen out of the train car as the train went around the curve. However, autopsy reports later revealed he'd been strangled to death and thrown from the train. The documents were gone. After the deaths of Rita and Bill, Molly became more and more fearful for her own safety. She was sure that there was a plan in motion to get rid of her family, and since she was the last one left, he was certain she'd be the next one to go. Before all this, she used to love entertaining, but now she'd become a shut-in and closed her home off against and given birth to a baby girl that she named Anna, and in her paranoia, she gave the baby to a relative to wait. She was diabetic, and her hope was rapidly going downhill. Doctors, brothers David and James Shaw, visited Molly regularly to give her injections of a new miracle drug they claimed was insulin. But despite the insulin injections, Molly continued to grow sicker and sicker. She confessed to her pastor that she had dark, troubling concerns. Molly worried that maybe it wasn't really sugar that was causing her to be so ill. Molly wondered if she was being poisoned. The pastor urged Molly not to accept food or drinks from anyone and not to touch liquor at all. Then he sent a letter to authorities pleading with them to investigate. The letter said that Molly wasn't sick with diabetes at all. She was being poisoned. The only question was, who was responsible? By this time, the killings had become known as the Osage Reign of Terror. It was more than 2 years in, and 24 people lay dead due to various accidents, violent attack, and other mysterious circumstances. It was clear to the Osage tribe that the local authorities were either unwilling or unable to deal with the situation. Newspapers began to publish stories about the Osage community suffering, making it harder for the public to turn a blind eye to what was going on.
These reports eventually caught the attention of John Edgar Hoover, the enterprising and ambitious young head of the Bureau of Investigation. Hoover sent a team of agents into Osage County to investigate the ongoing slaughter. Unfortunately, their initial work on the case was a chaotic and deadly misfire. The agents released a jail bank robber named Blackie Thompson, hoping that he'd squeeze his way into the criminal underworld in Osage County and become an asset as a secret informant. Instead, Blackie robbed a bank and killed a police officer. He was captured after a shootout with the cops and re-imprisoned. It was another disappointing failure of law enforcement in Osage County and a major embarrassment for the Bureau. But, as mentioned, Hoover was ambitious. He saw in the Osage cases opportunity to flex the Bureau's legislative muscle over the judiciary process and achieve the unrivaled and unrestricted levels of power he'd always dreamed of, and means to impose his revolutionary modern vision of law enforcement and build the agency into a countrywide force for justice. He saw there was potential to change the public's perception of American law enforcement from that untrained gunslinging relics of the past into rational-minded, suit-and-hat professional agents. But before he could achieve any of that, the Bureau had to figure out exactly what was going on in Osage County, and Hoover had one man in mind to help him with this mission: Special Agent Thomas Bruce White. Tom White was an unlikely choice. He was an old-school former Texas Ranger in charge of the Bureau's Houston office. Tom wasn't academy-trained. He wore a cowboy hat and carried a revolver. Tom fit the exact image that Hoover was trying to stray away from. But Tom was also known as a wise, vigilant, and methodical investigator. Tom's stellar reputation preceded him, and Hoover couldn't have made a better choice for the job. Still, it would be a dangerous assignment for both men. Failure could cost Hoover his job, but it could cost Tom his life. And behold, a pale horse. So Tom White headed to Oklahoma City to begin his investigation. He rounded up an eclectic group of agents as his team, who then took on a hodgepodge of different characters and embedded themselves within the power brokers of Osage County. One opened up an insurance company. One assumed the role of an elderly cattleman. Another became a rancher. An American Indian BOI agent named John Wren disguised himself as a medicine man, and soon they all made inroads into various facets of the Osage communities, with Wren being able to access the Osage tribe and learn information others could not. From the start, Tom saw patterns in the killings. All were wealthy Osage or their benefactors, and 3 were direct blood relatives. But the cases were puzzling. Different methods of murder were used. Some victims were shot, others were poisoned, others strangled, and the various ways the victims were killed suggested the murders were the work of more than one killer. The hesitancy of witnesses to come forward, the inconsistency of sources, and the various obvious corruption of the law enforcement authorities made it difficult to separate facts from rumor. Fabricated stories had to be definitively rolled out. Tales fatal love triangles and other scenarios were investigated and many suspects eliminated. One of the first red flags to Tom was that the Shawn brothers had located the bullet that Joanna suspected the brothers had stolen the bullet during the autopsy. The more Tom investigated, the more he concluded that Brian was the perpetrator of Anna's murder. Brian was the last person to see Anna alive, and even though he claimed to have an alibi that was corroborated by numerous people, including Ernest and William Hale, Tom uncovered a lead buried by the original investigation team that said something very different. There were 7 witnesses on record saying that they'd seen Brian and Ella driving around together that night at the time that Brian testified he dropped her off home. And many others stated to have seen Anna, Brian, and her unknown third party together. Brian and Anna were seen at 3 a.m. when they left the speakeasy and go off in the store. So Tom needed to figure out who the unknown man was that had been with Anna. Right. He learned that one of the private investigators held claimed at the beginning of Anna's murder investigation, a man named Pike allegedly knew who the person assaulted Pike was in the land. A couple of weeks later, Pike had been hunted down and arrested for robbery. In exchange for a possible sentence reduction, he revealed some new information. He hadn't been hired to help an investigation. He'd been hired to destroy the investigation by manufacturing evidence and generating false leads. And one of his jobs was to conceal lines through the very house he might have answered. He added that sometimes Ernest was present with his uncle and brother when plans discussed. And Pike could be trusted. Then at the very least, still was guilty of obstruction of justice in a murder case. Was Stone acting to protect his mission, or was he involved in chief restraints orchestrating Emma's murder, and possibly the killings of dozens of others? And what role does Ernest play in this deadly game? Did he conspire to kill his sister? And was he poisoning his wife? We all calmed down. As he scoured the probate records, Tom learned about Osage Reigns and the ways that individuals could come into possession of shares. The heritage solve really piqued his interest. An Osage tribal member who experienced multiple deaths in the family could find themselves the owner of many heroes. With her family having been systemically wiped out, Molly inherited so many rights, and through her marriage to Ernest, Hale gained direct access and large amount of money. This explained the Dean's design of death stalking Molly's family. Anna was first to go because she's divorced and childless. Her head rights mutually from mother Lizzie. Lizzie was next, with her head rights inherited equally by Molly and Rita. This also explained why Bill and Rita were victims of a bombing attack. For the premature, the two needed to be eliminated simultaneously. If only Rita died, then her head rights would have been willed for Bill. But with both of them taken out, then Molly gained adherence. And so the puzzle pieces fell into place. I heard that all of Molly's family killed. Jill maneuvered to have all of their head rights granted her. Once Molly is gone, then the Osage would be hit. But Tom knew that he'd never be able to convict Jill and his co-conspirators in Osage County. Even though the connections in the case were sound, the case was loosely circumstantial, and Jill had friends in high places. Tom needed to find corroboration from people actually directly involved in the conspiracy. There were whispers that a man named Dick Gregg knew about the murders. Gregg was serving time on robbery, and in exchange for a possible sentence reduction, he agreed to tell Tom what he knew. Gregg said that he used to run with the Spitzer gang, and Hill paid them $2,000 to murder Dylan Reed. But he refused because he found the contract killing of a woman to be dishonorable. He mentioned another man, Queen Johnson, as being involved, but
Tom soon learned that Jonathan had died of alleged alcohol poisoning, though it was suspected that he'd been a victim of a different type of poisoning. Jimmy Graham, who overheard Hill talking about the conspiracy, and died in a mysterious car accident. The conspiracy was consuming itself. It was clear to Tom that Hill was one by one picking off anyone who might be able to implicate them. In October 1925, Tom received information from a prisoner named Perkin Lawson, who said that he once worked as a ranch hand on Bill and Rita's property, and he caught Bill having an affair with his wife. He said that he was so angry, he'd become an easy target for the Hill co-conspirators to recruit. And in early 1921, Furnace and Hill offered him $5,000 to place explosives under Bill and Rita's home. He said that Hill even gave him the tools for making bombs, including nitroglycerin and fuses. Lawson waited until he was sure Bill and Rita were asleep. They lit the fuse and watched the house stove up. As he was asleep, Tom felt a rush of adrenaline. Finally, he had a confession from someone who could directly implicate Hill. He knew it had to move fast. Hill's homicidal plot was getting closer and closer to succeeding. Despite the Shawn brothers' treatment of her diabetes, with each day, Molly's condition only worsened. If things continued on the way they were, it was only a matter of time before she'd be called to the happy hunting ground, leaving everything behind Carmen, a position that William Hill would easily be exploited. Finally, in January of 1926, Tom decided to make a move. First, Bast was arrested and detained. Then, Hill was served with a warrant and surrendered to the county sheriff on his own. Hill was released from custody almost immediately. He smiled confidently as he talked with reporters outside the sheriff's. He proclaimed his innocence and refused to further comment about the charges against him. Hill's attorney submitted a signed telegram asserting that he'd been in Texas at the time of the bombing, and he thought a confession from Ernest. Tom knew his case was so he had Bert Lawson, but Lawson was a criminal, and a jury could find him uncredited. What Tom needed was a confession from Bruce. But Tom decided to do something unconventional. He thought that maybe the man who caused the Bureau so much trouble and embarrassment during its original investigation could actually be of use. So Tom took a trip to the prison to speak with Blackie Thompson. Tom told Blackie that he had questions to remove any incentive to lie. Tom told him his cooperation wouldn't result in a reduction of his prison sentence. Surprisingly, Blackie decided to talk anyway. Blackie revealed that Hill hired June and the now deceased Curly Johnson to murder Bill and Rita Smith. The only reason he hadn't gone through with it is that he'd been arrested for cracking and locked up before he had a chance to. Then, the agents used Blackie to break Ernest. They pulled the two together in the same investigation mode with Bureau agents, and Blackie told Ernest that he'd confessed everything he knew. Overwhelmed and intimidated, Ernest started to talk. He admitted that Hill had given him the task of hiring someone to blow up Bill and Rita's house. Ernest said that he'd gone to Henry Carmen, who'd hired Asa Kirby. Asa Kirby had been the one to rig the explosives that killed Bill and Rita. Not Lost. Lost was a liar. Who knows why? Maybe he hoped to get his sentence reduced, but who knows? Kirby had been killed by a store owner during an attempted burglary. Tom was surprised to never that Hill had been the one to slip off the store owner about the robbery. Ernest said that Hill and Grandma's trip to Texas on the day of the bombing was to manufacture an alibi. He also linked Hill directly to the murder of Henry Rowan. He said that Grandma was the go-between used to hire a contract killer named John Ramsey to kill. Ramsey was quickly found and arrested. When he was presented with Ernest's signed confession, he confessed to getting Rowan dropped a shooting pin in the back of the head. Finally, Ernest told the sad story of Anna's murder. He said that unknown man witnesses saw Anna and Brian was named Kelsey Morrison, and Kelsey was the man who shot Anna, indicative of the rampant corruption that had plagued nearly every step of the investigation from the beginning, with even Tom having been forced to sniff out and eliminate moles within its own team at different points. It should come as no surprise Kelsey had once been recruited by the Bureau as an undercover operative, with her husband implicated in a conspiracy to murder numerous people, including her sisters. Molly's life was in immediate danger. She was moved to a hospital away from her husband, his family, and the children. Her health improved significantly. The Bureau team then brought the Shaw brothers in for questioning, but they claimed to know nothing about murders. They also denied poisoning Molly. Even as she lay recovering in her hospital bed, Molly still loved her. She couldn't bring herself to accept the idea that he had a hand to play in the murders of her sisters, the beginning at the end. So now that Tom had Ernest and Ramsey's confession on lock, it was time to have a chat with the elusive William Hill. Evidence was circumstantial, but compelling. The Bureau could conceivably prove that William Hill financial incentives linked him to many of the 24 murders, but they couldn't conclusively prove that he conspired to commit all of them. But even when Tom confronted him with the mounting evidence, Hill remained cool and unshaken. He had money, he had connections, he was certain he'd be able to buy himself an acquittal for any crime in Osage County. He flashed a smile to Tom and told him he was ready to have his day for the heat fight all the charges. The nationwide media covered the murders and trials with a macabre and titillating fascination. The newspapers and rails treated the tragic events experienced by the Osage as if it were entertainment instead of the devastating exploitation and grief of a tribe persecuted for money. Well, they just wanted to see justice. The Society of Oklahoma Indian even issued a public statement that proclaimed the existence of a nation reign of terror waged against the Osage Nation. The intention of the statement was to make sure that Hill couldn't use his powerful connections to influence the trial, but this was easier said than done. Oklahoma's state judicial system was rife with corruption. Tom knew that his best chance of securing convictions was to plead the case in federal court, but there were issues with that as well. Although the tribe still retained their oil and mineral rights, they sold off much of their surplus land. This meant that, with the exception of everyone who was found on Osage-controlled territory, many of the murders had taken place on lands under Oklahoma's jurisdiction. So the decision was made to prosecute Hill for wanton, but they were named to another. A U.S. District Court judge made a taking ruling that wanton murder had to be tried in state court. The prosecution appealed the ruling, but the process would take months. And during that time, William Hill and John Ramsey would have to be let go. But just when all seemed lost, fortune smiled and calm. The Oklahoma State Attorney General was willing to draft murder charges for Bill and Rita's bombing. And while Hill and Ramsey were in the midst of celebrating, they were rearrested and deported, then hauled off once again to the local jail. Finally, the wheels of justice were turning. Unfortunately, those wheels were going to be turning in Osage County. The prosecution knew they had a rough battle and gathered an all-star legal team. William Hill hired his own team of high-powered attorneys. He was confident he would win. After all, he was the king of the Osage. He was untouched. The betrayal of Molly by the dastardly Ernest Burkhardt covert William Hill carried out
in cities campaign witness and conviction. First, he hired the hit to get rid of Kelsey's ex-wife, who was scheduled to testify for the prosecution. But the hitman double-crossed Hill. He took the payment and later reported the plot to law enforcement. Then Hill sent a gangster to assassinate the federal agent. Thankfully, Tom received a tip warning him that he and his team were in danger. He gathered his men and got the drop on the would-be killer, surprising the unlucky man as he laid in wait and ran him out of town. The trial was heartbreaking for Molly. Molly had refused to believe that Ernest could be intentionally guilty. She knew Ernest to be a good man who'd never do anything so evil. It said as much when she was questioned by investigators. She loved Ernest and her family was on. He was really all that she had left. She sat in a corner of the courtroom, quiet and alone, this spectacle that people in the gallery whispered about. She was ostracized by most of the tribe because they felt like she was responsible for bringing killers into their community. And they were behind her continued blind support. Many of the whites had never really accepted her anyway. And the more in the details of the plot to eliminate her family came to light, the lower Molly dropped her head. Implications of it all weighed down. She felt like she was living her worst nightmare, and not only that, but her pain became a salacious front story for nationwide press. Meanwhile, reading Hill's side was a virtual circus. The gallery was packed with his supporters. They'd whoop and cheer at every motion made by the defense and jeer and whoop the prosecution. Hill's team also played underhanded, dirty tricks. They tried to intimidate Ernest in open court, and the judge did nothing to stop it. Hill even openly berated Ernest that he treated to his own blood in full view of the court, judge, and jury. Then, as the prosecution looked on in disbelief, Hill's attorneys interrupted the testimony with claims that Ernest was their witness and actively allowed a private meeting with Ernest, which they were granted. They ushered Ernest out of the witness box and into the judge's chambers for over 20 minutes. Upon returning, they claimed they needed time to confer with their witness, Ernest, about defense tactics. When court came to session the following, Ernest took the stand for the defense and recanted his previous testimony. Ernest denied all the prosecution's questions and steadfastly claimed he didn't know anything about them. The prosecution team's strategy was to try Ernest first and use his conviction as leverage against others. Now, with this recantation, the whole case was falling apart. And Hell knew it. Then, the king of the Osage Hills took his place on the stand, and he gave one April 100. Hell claimed that during the interrogation, and refused to coerce a false confession from him. He'd been tortured by Carmen and the Bureau agents. He said that they told him they had ways to make people talk. They claimed that the Bureau agents assaulted him, threw him across the interrogation room, threatened to bash his fool in, and was a pistol in the safe. He testified under oath that agents pulled a black hood over his head, forced him into a chair rigged with wires called a hot chair, and taunted him with threats of electrocution. Hell said that the agents didn't follow through on both threats. Then, Bell freaked up the putting theatrics to a ghost. He flailed around as he reenacted the burst of electricity that he claimed surged through his body as he was looking. Harold stated an agent sniffed the air and said, "Don't you smell that human flesh burning?" Ernest and co-defendant Ramsey got in on the act and backed up Bill's names, with both testifying under oath that they also been coerced into making false confessions. Claims were both galvanizing and disturbing. The courtroom was vivid.
They actually didn't really think there was any way to the plan against Tom and the agents, but because there'd been a number of provable scandals in the Bureau's past surrounding the Osage investigation, they didn't really want to risk any unexpected surprises derailing the attempts at building a Bureau into an influential, far-reaching, stable organization. So reluctantly, Tom testified under oath in defense of himself and his team. And throughout all the defense stunts, there were also stunts being carried out behind the scenes, with the growing political pressure to move Tom's agents out of the Bureau altogether. These were spearheaded by a wealthy senator and all one who advocated for the Osage guardianship system. Thanks to the compounded antic, it wasn't looking too good for the prosecution team. Their case was falling apart. It really looked like William Hill and his co-conspirators were going to walk free, but the prosecution had one card to play. Kelsey Morrissey. Sure, Kelsey was a notorious outlaw, but he also was the person that Ernest did kill Anna. And while it was true that Kelsey was a merified king of the Osage Hills with his money and connections, the power behind the prosecution team scared him a lot more. His life was under control of the United States government, and no sense of preservation kicked in. So when he took his place in the witness farm, he told everything. He sought out his full testimony confirming that he'd been recruited by Hill to take out Molly's entire family, which was subsequently raped by his own hair, the considerable Osage headright so. No was like dominating figure to his nephew and would have easy access to the money. Then, to a captive audience, including Molly, who listened intently, Kelsey recount the sorrowful, sad tale of Anna's final warning. Kelsey said that he, Brian, and Brian's wife Cole, who'd been with them that night, got Anna stone drunk at a speakeasy, then drove her out to the creek. Cole waited in the car's lookout as Kelsey and Brian dragged Anna down into the ravine. She was so drunk that she couldn't even walk on her own. Brian set Anna down on a rock, propped her up into position, and held her still. Then Kelsey shot her in the back of the head. The gun had been provided by Helen. Cole corroborated Kelsey's testimony and said she had to come forward after the murder because Kelsey had threatened to stomp her to death if she ever said anything. He said she stayed in the car for about a half hour after Kelsey and Brian left with Anna and never saw Anna alive again. Meanwhile, they inflicted another unfortunate tragic blow to Molly. When her 4-year-old daughter Anna, the child she'd sent to live with relatives, unexpectedly passed away from a sudden illness. A few days after the funeral of little Anna, Miss asked to meet with the prosecution and told them that he wanted to withdraw his plea of not guilty and enter a plea of guilty. Ernest stood and read a statement before the judge and jury that he'd been the one to deliver the message from William Hill to Jack Ramsey to tell Ashley Kirby it was time to blow up Bill and Rita's house. Ernest admitted that his claims of being tortured and abused at the hands of the Bureau agents were all lies. The New York Times ran the front page headline, "Reverberates admits Oklahoma killing, confesses he hired men to dynamite Smith Collins," said Uncle Elliot Lott. On June 21st, 1926, Ernest was sentenced to life imprisonment in Fort Acre. The killing of the Osage Hill. Tom, his agents, and the prosecution team celebrated their victory, but they still had a long path ahead. They still needed to get convictions for Brian Burkhart, John Ramsey, and William Hill, and they knew it was going to be difficult. But there was some good news. The Supreme Court had finally ruled that Henry Rollins' murder had been committed on Osage-controlled territory, so Hill and his henchmen could be tried in federal district court. On January 29, 1926, trial of William Hill began for aiding and abetting the murder of Henry Rollins, while John Ramsey was charged with killing him. As the trial unfolded, the jury learned its sworn testimony, confirmed by Ernest, that the original plan had been to kill Rollins through the slow administration of poison moonshine. Ernest's testimony finally made public of the Osage community have long suspected many of the slow, wasting deaths of their friends and family, including those of Lizzie and Minnie, had been deliberate poisoning. The prosecution laid out a compelling case for murder and mayhem, with Hill at the center, orchestrating the scheme over 5 years. Hill had turned the slaughter of humans into a profitable business, and business was good. The evidence was stacking up, but Tom believed no matter the evidence presented, the verdict would come down to whether or not the jury was tainted. Would the jury consider a white man killing an Osage to be murder? Plus, William Hill had waged a not-so-secret campaign of jury bribery, intimidation, and tampering. Tom was disappointed, but not exactly surprised, when the jury was unable to reach a unanimous verdict on Hill and Ramsey. The hung jury was the product of Hill's behind-the-scenes labyrinth. The king of the Osage Hill had managed to weasel out of accountability once again. Brian's verdict had also come back to the hung jury. The trio would have to be retried. During the retrial, to the astonishment of the shocked courtroom spectators, the defense called Molly to the stand. They forced Molly to admit to a brief marriage to Henry Ron and implied that Ernest had killed Ron in a jealous rage. They said that the murder had nothing to do with Hill, but the king of the Osage Hills finally went out of luck. On October 29, 1926, both Hill and Ramsey found guilty of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison. Neither man made any statement upon the conviction and sentencing. The following year, Dulcie was convicted of Anna's murder. Brian Burkhardt was given immunity by the prosecution. In response to the Reign of Terror, the Osage Tribal Council persuaded Congress to pass a law that prevented anyone who was not at least half Osage from inheriting a head right, uphold, and betrayed. Molly divorced Ernest shortly after he was sent to prison. Ernest, Brian, Kelsey, and William Hill had not only been in the crowd of spectators when Anna's body was found, but they'd also been the ones there to comfort Molly. He felt sick, knowing that she'd been comforted by the same people who'd inflicted her pain. The forgotten hero and the birth of the FBI. The Osage murder case was a lightning rod for the Bureau of Investigation and helped to boost the Bureau's image and the public imagination as the epitome of dynamic, skilled, and professional law enforcement. As the years went on, J. Edgar Hoover's power and influence only grew. The Bureau of Investigation became the Federal Bureau of Investigations, and the organization's profile ballooned when it took on infamous public enemies like John Dillinger, Bonnie Clyde, and other Depression-era outlaws. Tom enjoyed an initial career boost in his work on the Osage case. In the fall of 1926, the Justice Department named him as the new warden of the federal prison at Leavenworth. He had been serving as warden for 5 years when he was taken hostage by 7 prisoners who escaped using weapons that were smuggled to them within shoot-push barrels. Tom was shot when he resisted the escapees' attempts to force him into a getaway car and left lying bleeding in the streets as the prisoners fled with law enforcement in quick pursuit. He suffered grievous injuries. A shotgun blast tore through his left side, damaging organs, shattering bones, ripping apart nerves and arteries. The wound so severe that his left arm had to be amputated. After he returned to duty, Tom was transferred to a less strenuous position at Latuna Minimum Security Federal Prison, where he dedicated the remainder of his career prisoner rehabilitation. Tom retired at the age of 70. Around that time, the Osage cases had begun to fade from public memory, and Tom understood how dangerous it was to forget the past. People needed to remember
so such travesties wouldn't repeat themselves, so they wouldn't go unnoticed and unpunished. Tom also wanted the world to know that he hadn't sat idly by and done nothing while innocent Osage tribe members had suffered and died. He played a very important role in bringing the conspirators to justice, and so he reached out to J. Edgar Hoover, but Hoover had always been self-serving as far as he was concerned. He was the singular person responsible for securing every single one of the federal criminals off of the street, and each and every single arrest and federal conviction. He had no interest in sharing credit with Tom or anyone else for that matter.
He didn't want to share the public spotlight with him. In 1958, Tom tried writing his memoirs and asked Hoover if the FBI would be willing to release old files from the Osage case, but the FBI gave him material that was mostly useless. Frail and elderly, Tom was left to work on his own, and sadly, his work was rejected by publishers. Tom passed away in 1971, a mostly forgotten hero, despite his extraordinary efforts in bringing down one of the most infamous criminal conspiracies to terrorize Americans in the early 20th century.
The life tomorrow. After the murders of her family and the conviction of her husband, Molly was left to pick up the shattered remains of her life. She managed to find some measure of happiness in the years after the Reign of Terror. She remarried to a man named John Cobb, and theirs was a happy marriage. Together, they raised her 2 children, Elizabeth and James. She obtained full U.S. citizenship, which granted financial autonomy. In 1937, Molly passed away. She was 50 years old. Even though William Hale received a life sentence, he was released from prison in 1947. His parole conditions barred him from returning to live in Oklahoma, but he never stopped claiming to be a friend of the Osage, and he continued to visit the state and write letters requesting residency there. Finally, he moved on to a nursing home in Arizona and lived in quiet obscurity until his death in 1962. He was 87 years old. John Ramsey was paroled 4 months after Hale, and there he slips out of his tail. Kelsey Morrison's life sentence was overturned on appeal. He was released after serving just over 3 years, and in 1937, he was killed in a shootout with police. He was 38 years old. Ernest was granted parole from his life sentence in 1937. 3 years later, he went to prison once again after he robbed his ex-Osage sister-in-law's home. He was paroled a second time in 1959. He later petitioned and received a pardon from the Oklahoma State Court. He returned to Oklahoma to live with his brother Brian. No one else in the family wanted anything much to do with Ernest. He lived most of the rest of his days in a vermin-infested trailer. Ernest died in 1986. He was 94 years old. He was cremated and wanted his ashes spread across the Osage Hills. Instead, his son James threw the ashes over a bridge.
The resilience of the Osage Nation. The Reign of Terror left the Osage Nation scarred both emotionally and economically. Trust is shattered, and the profound sense of trauma continues to linger. The Osage community faced the double-edged sword of wealth and the loss of loved ones. Families were torn apart, and a culture that had thrived for generations was undermined. The very fabric of the community unraveled.
Oil wells continued on Osage land, though many now sit abandoned, left behind to poison the soil and water by oil companies who have long since moved on. The revenue generated from active
reverberates has dwindled to mere whispers of the staggering levels of wealth the Osage tribe once claimed. And to this day, the income made from oil production is held in an estate trust controlled by the United States government and doled out quarterly to Osage head rights holders. And while the Osage Nation maintains mineral rights, thanks to the rampant corruption and exploitation of the Osage permitted through the guardianship system, nowadays many Osage head rights holders and landowners aren't members or affiliates of the Osage Nation. Like all indigenous and minority communities, the Osage Nation has weathered and continues to weather many storms of brutal betrayals and disappointments, and they still remain. The Osage Nation works hard to preserve and protect their culture and heritage, and they ensure that their language, traditions, and identity endures for future generations. And the Osage have a lot to be proud of. Their sisters, Marjorie and Maria Talchis, both Osage Nation members. Maria revolutionized ballet and is celebrated as America's first prima ballerina. Marjorie was also a famed prima ballerina, choreographer, and dance instructor.
The memory of those dark days serves as a reminder of the resilience and strength of the Osage people. Those scars may never fully heal, but they become a testament to the tribe's enduring spirit. The tribe continues to seek justice for the victims of the Reign of Terror. While many of the perpetrators may have evaded justice in their time, the tribe strives to ensure that the truth is brought to light. The Reign of Terror is a dark, harrowing chapter in American history that should never be forgotten. The Osage people are not only survivors, but also torchbearers of their own history, determined to ensure that the legacy of their ancestors lives on in a stronger, more resilient Osage Nation. So as we conclude this gripping tale, let us remember that history holds secrets, and in its darkest chapters, we find lessons that shape the present and the future. That's all the time we have for today. But before I go, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to stay notified for upcoming episodes. Tell me how you feel about the video and let me know what topics you'd like to see covered next. I hope to see you guys again soon as we continue on our journey together here on the Cultural Planet. Bye-bye.